up? What up? Welcome back to the Sports Business Take podcast. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. How you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing good today, Paul. How you doing, brother?
Wow. At least I wasn't recording that in the day in the life segment. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm totally cutting that out. But yeah, no, I'm doing really good. I've been today, as you know, I've been doing the whole day in the life segment. That video will come out on YouTube probably tomorrow. I'm gonna put that together. Just taking videos of me going to class, going to the gym, doing some athletic department stuff, and now this everything. So our audience will get to see everything about how I set up, and then obviously I just took a video of the intro minus the minus the unfortunate mishap after. Yeah, exactly. And they'll get to see like me pack up and everything. So I'm excited for that. I think I want to start doing more like quirky content while we have the opportunity to. So actually, since I mentioned it, I do have kind of a big announcement that happened since the last time we recorded, just the two of us. Obviously, last time we had Daniel Goldberg on, and it was happening during the middle of that, and I didn't want to, take away from his shine or whatever. So I guess I'll do it now. I was gonna wait till the end of the year, but it's pretty much official as long as I keep my grades up. So which is looking good after midterms came out today. So all A's so far.
Oh yeah, read it. Love it.
This is a big week though. I'm nervous. I got an econ test tomorrow that I'm stressing about. Actually, that's gonna be part of the day in the life video. But anyway, I have decided to move on from St. Joe's starting next fall. I will be transferring to UMass Amherst into the sports management program. They're the top sports management program in the country, in the country. So super exciting opportunity for me, just to go learn from the best in the country. And it was something that I really couldn't patch up professionally when I looked at it after I'd gotten in. Not that I'm not grateful for what I have at St. Joe's. I love St. Joe's. It's just I feel like this will help my professional life. Specifically, I've told you this before. I want to go do a graduate assistantship program, and I believe they'll help me in getting that. So, yeah, I've decided to move on from St. Joe's, but I have definitely enjoyed my time here. It's been super productive. I'm a whole different person than I was when I came here. I didn't have any of this, like what we're doing right now. If I wasn't here, we wouldn't be doing this, right? So I am grateful for St. Joe's. It has given me a lot of things, friends, memories, and several opportunities, including this and including my internship with the Sea Dogs. St. Joe's introduced me to my old boss at the Sea Dogs, so I have definitely had a lot of opportunities here, but I'm looking forward to new ones starting next year. And you'll be going to grad school because you're graduating early.
Oh yeah.
So, I bet some people are probably thinking right now, like, oh, what's going to happen? We're going to still do the pod after we both leave here, obviously, because we can do it remotely. And we did it over the summer, and it worked great. And we've done it over breaks, so there's really no reason not to keep doing it. One thing about Amherst that's going to be awesome is they have soundproof recording studios in the library, so that'll be very heavily taken advantage of by me for podcasts specifically. And they have a digital media studio, so I think that'll be an interesting resource to check out see what we can cook up in there. So.
I love it.
I'm super.
You're excited. You're getting me excited for new opportunities, brother. So excellent work. I'm proud and happy for you.
Yeah. When's your grad test?
GMAT is April 5th, so that's not.
Oh wow.
Next.
Yeah, like a week away. Wow. you must be studying pretty hard then. Everybody wish him luck. Everybody wish him luck right now. Praying for him.
I got a lot of studying to do.
Yeah.
Prayers, hope. It's all stuff I'm confident in. It's just application of concepts and working hard.
Absolutely.
And not getting overwhelmed in the test. So
absolutely.
Stay calm. Stay calm.
Well, here's the new opportunities for both of us next year, right?
Cheers, yes.
So we actually have a really interesting story to talk about today. Despite everything that's going on, clearly, I think that was the longest intro that we've really ever done, honestly. Usually it's like a minute, and it's like, okay, now we're talking about yeah. So today we're talking about this whole saga of what's been going on with Shohei Ohtani and his translator Ippei Mizuhara. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm like 95% sure I'm saying it right. I obviously don't speak Japanese, so but it started. First of all, I want to say it's a developing story, right? There's continuing facts that are coming out and some conflicting accounts from people involved in the situation. So Shohei's translator, Ippei Mizuhara, was fired by the Dodgers and by Shohei Ohtani personally when it was connected that Ippei and Shohei were involved in an illegal sports betting operation that the feds were investigating. And I don't know if when I said Shohei's involved, the money that was transferred was under his name. It was $4.5 million, which is a lot of money. And there's been a lot of speculation about whether he's involved or not, whether it's just Ippei stole the money from him, which is actually now what Ohtani has said. He had a press conference today where he said that, and what his reps have now said. And Ippei himself has come out and said that he's lied about it, and that Ohtani didn't even know, and that basically he stole the money from him. So there's this whole complicated saga. I wanted to get your reaction because the whole thing is very confusing.
Yeah, just overall, and as always, I always connect things to soccer. When we see a sports gambling type of problem with an athlete, it genuinely leads to a difficult type of concept. Soccer examples we've seen recently, we've seen Ivan Toney, who plays for Brentford FC, just came off of an 8-month ban for being involved with sports betting. Same thing for Newcastle midfielder, the Italian Tonali, right, where he also is currently in a ban. But that was direct situations where they were the ones committing the betting incident. So they were the ones betting on the match, betting on sport in some way or form. So it's not in this case. It's even more confusing and more complicated because it's not directly linked to Shohei, right? It's somebody who's part of his camp who's gone and taken in theory what the accusation
but
is.
But it makes it complicated because it's under his name.
Right. He's gone and taken Shohei's funds and done this. So the question or possibility is, for me in my head, is situation one, right, is Shohei saying the truth? And obviously we hope he's saying the truth. He seems like an honest guy.
Hopefully, yeah.
All of America believes him to be an honest guy, right?
Yeah.
But there's also scenario two where Shohei is like, all right, who's the closest guy to me? My interpreter is my best friend, right? We see that a lot in new cities where somebody doesn't speak the language particularly well and they're learning American, right? So the interpreter is probably a really good friend of his, and I need somebody to take a hit for me. And
yeah,
totally possible. And this is not me putting anything on Shohei Ohtani or saying that sports betting is right or saying that Shohei.
No, we're just talking about hypotheticals.
Just thinking hypotheticals, right? Where Shohei actually did commit it, and Ippei is the closest guy to him, and is like, "Hey, bro, I need you to do me a solid, right?" And full hand slap, bring it in, right? And they take care of this. Now, that's probably not what's happening, but that's a possibility, right? And that's what's crazy to me.
Yeah, right. And there is becoming a less and less percentage chance that is what is happening as more accounts of what did happen come out and more reports come out. Shohei didn't even know about the story, which is that Ippei did an interview with ESPN. He didn't even know that Ippei did an interview with ESPN until Ippei was fired, and then the Dodgers brought in another translator and were able to translate correctly the story to him. Ippei wasn't telling him about the whole thing. So he found out from a different translator after Ipe had been fired. So for a while, he had no idea that this was even developing, which I think is a super interesting aspect of it. But
Absolutely.
we read several ESPN articles about this. I want to start with this quote. In a span of 2 days, Otani's handlers, meaning like his camp, his attorneys, and his representation, moved from saying the slugger had paid Muzahara's gambling debts to his attorneys announcing Ohtani had been the victim of a quote massive theft, and they have brought the accusation to law enforcement. The law enforcement isn't specified, but basically, this is what we were talking about with the first scenario. It's Ipe stole the money from him. Is essentially that first scenario, and that is possible. But I gotta wonder, how do you not notice $4.5 million missing from your bank account? Although, I mean, I guess that would seem like $100 to you or me. Like comparatively, if we're looking at the wealth between Shohei Ohtani and us, I mean, he just signed the most lucrative contract in baseball history. But I gotta figure that you would notice almost $5 million missing from your bank account.
And
Um,
here's the thing, right? Star athletes who are making that much money, I strongly believe Shohei has a team, and Shohei is not in charge of his own funds, right? As much as he
yeah,
is the decision
probably not.
maker and he decides whether I want to buy a house or not, he likely has his own accountant who manages his accounts and does all this, so he
Absolutely.
doesn't have to worry about his budget,
Yeah,
whatever,
it probably
right?
has a
And he has
financial manager
advisors
or
or
several.
financial advisors, all these things that
Mm-hmm.
support him. And where it's the case of, again, you just pointed out that Shohei didn't hear about it until Ipe was actually fired and post the new translator coming in, right? So we're looking at a situation where Shohei actually learns about the situation. I guarantee you, the accountant notices it and sees, whoa, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Goes and calls up the attorneys and say, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about this. Probably calls
Right.
Ipe because Ipe probably works with Shohei's camp, right? And there's this
Right.
whole cycle where Shohei doesn't even have to stress about any of this, right?
Yeah, he didn't
So
even get filled in.
exactly. So, and the biggest thing is that this is all around him as a person and him as a player, but realistically, based on the picture and what the stories are coming out and what you've just described from this kind of storyline, he really isn't involved in this in any way or form. So
No.
when we get into later talking about possible bans and stuff like that, stuff we've seen with Ivan Toney, right, for example, that's not something I'm worried about with Shohei. Purely
No,
because
me not. Me
it's
neither.
not him coming out saying, yeah, I did betting. Yes, it's a mental health issue because betting is a mental health
Right.
issue, and having that support is huge. I'm writing an article right now, and I'll talk about what I'm writing later in the episode when I get a little blurb. But Southampton FC, for example, have tons of betting help resources for their fans. Not because they've had a player have the issue, but they have a sports betting sponsor, and it's something that they feel socially responsible to fulfill. So I can see Shohei being very going and taking and saying, "Hey, now that I'm associated with this, what's the counteraction that I need to discuss?" I think that counteraction will
Right.
be sports betting help, the mental health portion, and I could see him investing and saying, "Ipe is my friend. I want to see him improve and get better," rather than saying, "I want to absolutely eradicate this guy in court." Right? We want to get him the mental
Yeah,
health. And as you just said,
it's
the
kind of
4.5
interesting.
million on a 700 million contract is really
Yeah.
prospectively a lot of money, but also it's like $100.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I wanna talk about what you just said about how he'll basically try to help him. I kind of think it's the opposite based on what has come out today. So
Hmm.
Shohei, for the first time today, talked to the media about the whole situation. He hadn't said anything until a few hours ago, and he said he denied ever having sports gambled, like ever, and said his translator had been quote stealing money to pay for quote gambling addiction. I got that from a CNN article, and
Correct.
he said quote, I'm very saddened and shocked that someone who I've trusted has done this, and accused him of lying.
And
So
and I think
I feel like what you were saying about he'll try to help him with his addiction, I feel like he almost can't because of the public perception of he's accused him of stealing money, called him a liar, and basically said um, that he can't believe that someone this close to him did this. I feel like there's no coming back from stealing $5 million from somebody. At least that's just me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're making a good point. It goes down to worldview, ethos, sociology, psychology. What do you live by? And for me as a person, right, there's a lot of things that people can do to hurt me, right? And no matter what that person does to me, I know for a fact, right? I'm wearing my "I Believe" shirt tonight, so maybe I'm just in a religious state of mind, and I don't know what Shohei's association with, or what his beliefs are, or what his belief system worldviews are, right? But I turn around and say, money is the last thing in the world that matters to me. I go and I
Yeah,
say, this person is someone who has been my friend. Yes, he lied to me. Yes, he stole from me. Yes, he failed me, but I still love him. And I still
it's
want to
less.
see him succeed, right? So it's not about,
Yeah,
I'm not, right?
I feel like it's
I'm
less
probably
about the
never
money
going
and
to
more
trust
about the
that
breaking
person again.
trust. You know what I mean?
It's,
I-
I'm probably never going to trust that person again. Correct.
right.
I'm never going to bring them that close to me again where they can hurt me to this extent. But I am going to say, hey, I want to help you and see you be better. He described him as a gambling addict, not as
Right.
he said gambling addict first, not as a lying cheat who I absolutely hate. No, that's not what
Right. That's
Shohei said,
true.
right?
Yeah.
Shohei said,
He
this is
did
somebody that I
say
trust and that I loved who went
right.
and hurt me because he's a gambling addict.
Right.
And
He
I'm
did
really
say it
hurt that he
was.
would do that to me. He's a liar,
He did say
right?
it
Because
was
he
quote
lied
for a
to Shohei,
gambling addiction. Right.
right? So I, when, right, Shohei has control of his own accounts, his interpreter probably doesn't. So when, in some way or form, I'm sure Ippei asked Shohei for this money, saying, "Hey, I need a loan, right? Or I need help
I
with
don't know. I
something."
don't want to make any assumptions.
I'm not making assumptions. I'm just
That
talking theory,
actually
right?
that
It's
actually
possible.
was the original story. So Ipe did 2 interviews with ESPN, and that was the original story that he told ESPN was that Shohei had actually not that Ipe told ESPN, that a representative of Shohei told ESPN that Shohei had wired Ipe the money to cover gambling debts. That was the original story. And
Well,
then Ipe did a second interview after uh, Shohei's lawyers put out that statement where they accused him of stealing, and
mm,
that's where he admitted that he had deceived Ohtani, essentially. So
right.
Ipe told ESPN in his second interview that that Ohtani had no knowledge of his gambling or debts, so completely retracting his previous statements.
Wow.
And this is a direct quote from the ESPN article. The interviewer asked, "Did you lie to Shohei?" And he said, "Yes." Direct quote from him in the interview. And this one's really interesting. Quote from the article: The ESPN reporter texts him with a final question: "Did you take the money from Shohei's account without his knowledge?" And Ipe didn't respond.
And that's the hard part, right? Where it's just there's so many moving pieces and so many people and so much word to word of mouth where
I know
it's
it's so
information. It's
conflicting.
an information pool where it's really unclarified, right? So there's so many
Yeah.
possibilities. And to go back to my previous point, like I really believe I want to see Shohei take this and say I can make an excellent example of what I want to see the world be and what I want to see people act like, which in my opinion is to go and
Help
roll it on
him.
the shoulder, go and say, "I want to help you. You're my
Yeah.
friend."
I would
Not
definitely be
say
taking the high
hire
road.
him as an interpreter again, but like say,
Right.
"Well, let's get these type of people help. Let's create help
Yeah.
resources. Maybe create a nonprofit type foundation, whatever." Right? Interesting type of possibilities where yes, his friends lied to him. Yes, his friend probably stole from him. Yes, his friend hurt him. right? But it still represents like I am Shohei Ohtani, and I
Yeah.
am an embodiment of love and respect, right? Where
Yeah.
again, you are taking the high road to that extent, but you're carrying yourself in a certain way where I immediately go as a sporting fan and as a sporting interest of that's somebody I respect and that's somebody who I want to be like. So
Yeah.
in an immediate instance, he is actually through through a visual and verbal deliberate action, making himself a more profitable resource to a company because he is associated with social and character, social character correctness, morality, etc., outside of just being an athlete. Which for a
Yeah.
company,
I don't think I could have put a more positive spin on the story than you just did.
I am very much an optimist. For everyone that's watching, for anyone that knows me, I am the most optimistic or one of the most optimistic persons in the world. It's a hard thing to
That's a
do, and I will
that's a fact.
say I need some pessimists in my life. Okay, I need that balance. But
Not that I'm a pessimist, just that maybe I'm a little
more
not
realist.
trusting. Maybe. Um, I don't know. Just to me, the whole situation is it's confusing because there's so many conflicting points of view and conflicting information. You know how basically how he told ESPN one thing and then went back on it, and then there's multiple different points of view from Otani's camp, and then what Otani said himself. There's so many different sources of information talking about the topic that it's hard to parse out which is true and which is not. And there have been a lot of facts that have come out that have questioned how trustworthy EPA is to begin with, which I thought was pretty interesting. Interesting choice, but specifically, his college, UC Riverside, was asked about Ipe, and they were they said that they had no records of him attending there. They said that they had no records of him even attending the school, and that's what he had put on his resume as part of getting the interpreter job. And this was according to NBC Los Angeles, by the way. I got that from them. But I mean, man, like to me, if the guy's lying on a resume, like as a like in terms of professionalism, if a guy's lying on a resume about where he went to college, he really is not trustworthy and is capable of doing something like this. And I hate to be sounding like I'm questioning the character of somebody, but I mean, like that's a fact that you just can't overlook. If that's true, if they really did have no records of him at the college, I mean, man, then his lying to Otani could go back years. And I know that's speculative, but I mean, we are called Sports Business Take for a reason. Like we can't always be not speculative. So, especially with a situation that is, like I said, still developing, I just think it's such an interesting theory, and I think it's probably the correct theory that he lied about the whole thing. Otani had no idea, and then found out through other people about the whole situation.
Right.
And that's what Shohei's attorneys are accusing him of, and that's what he almost said himself. He obviously he can't say like, yes, I stole the money from him, otherwise he would not have any legal defense. but I mean, he said he lied. He said he lied to him. So like that pretty much is an admission of guilt. And it's not a full admission of guilt, but it pretty much is. But I thought that fact was interesting because the only reason we're talking about this, by the way, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this until now, is that MLB has opened. We're 25 minutes in. We haven't mentioned this. Is that MLB has opened an investigation into Shohei Ohtani and his involvement in the whole scenario. So now there's other people looking into it too, just besides law enforcement. So now it adds another part to the saga, and that's the real reason that we're talking about it is, what happens with that investigation hypothetically if it. Well, okay, let me ask you the first question that I put down is it a formality now that we know everything that we know?
And I'm going to say this. When you look at sports investigations and sports organizations doing investigations, it's never it's just a formality always. But it becomes more than a formality when they find information that they can actually put on trial, right? So a
Right.
sports organization is always going to say, "Hey, this is something we might need to investigate. Let's make sure we investigate it." Or at least that's what they
Right.
should do, right? Rather than letting things just kind of go under the water, right? Because then that's where we have situations where, look at the NWSL, and you have rape accusations and this and this and that, and all builds up, and you have sexual assault
Right.
issues, and then it kind of all slaps, and you
It
go,
snowballs.
okay, we have to cut it all out and to do a massive organizational change. Your league gets into
Mm-hmm.
question, etc. Right? So it's the type of thing where the MLB, if they are seeking to be a upholding organization that's respected by the general sports viewer and in addition by its peers from leagues, you have to investigate something like this, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
yes, it could just be a formality with the amount of information and what's said, but also it could be a lot. It could turn into more than a formality very quickly if there's information that goes against what is the current public belief. Um,
Right.
so it's difficult, right? And it's hard to say, but it's a bit of both to answer your question.
Right. And the chance of that happening, of them finding information seemingly, is not very good at the moment, based on what Ipe has said and what Shohei has said. Um, One can draw conclusions of what happened, and we just did like 5 minutes ago. But um, I'm gonna be really curious to see if the investigation goes the other way and they do find that Shohei has an involvement in this. What is going to happen? MLB can't afford to lose its biggest star right now. The season is just about to start. Spring training is ending. Opening day is in 3 days. And they're about to lose their biggest star. If they punish him, they would lose their biggest star at a time when he just signed the most lucrative contract in the sports history 3 months ago. I mean, what horrific timing for the league's market, like from a marketing perspective, horrible timing. What do you think
No,
about
and you're
that?
absolutely correct. It is something like this never had a good timing, right? Even if it's perfectly placed in the off season, right? It's something where if there was to be a ban, the ban would only come into place in action when the league actually kicks off, right? So
Right.
so it's difficult and complicated, and it's not something you want to see happen. But
No.
we live in a messed up world where people are imperfect and things are super complicated. And although you don't want to lose your biggest star, right, you also need to uphold a moral correctness as an organization
Yeah. You need to
you're
hold the
not
values.
where you're not ignoring something, especially in the world we live in today with social media and everything like that. If this was, say, the early 2000s, right, or even the 1980s, right, it's a lot easier to ignore something like this, and something like this probably doesn't happen or come out. So it makes
Pete
it.
Rose.
I'm not saying it wouldn't, but something like this might not come out. Right?
Right.
There's less of a chance of
Right.
the interpreter of Shohei Ohtani getting an interview with ESPN.
True.
Right? Right? That's not likely to happen unless there's a random story that comes out very quickly. Right? So
Yeah,
unless there
true.
was
The
a
internet
story
makes it way easier.
the Los Angeles Times, right, I wouldn't see something like that being shared on this scale. So I think it's a problem of today where we have social media and we have everything is so driven and we have such a strong understanding of what is to be moral code, especially in sports. Like sports is a societal driver. So we have a strong expectation of what things and what people do and what organizations do, where to
Right.
maintain fans and to maintain interest, you kind of have to do the right thing. where it makes it difficult to say, yeah, we should ignore a possible gambling ban.
Yeah, they
If you
can't.
were to ignore it
They
for
can't.
Shohei and for a different kid, you really can't ignore it.
Yeah, if
So
they find
yes,
him guilty, they
it's
can't just sweep
horrible.
it under the rug.
Exactly, right? The timing is
No
horrible. It's a
matter
bad
how much money he
situation,
brings in.
right? Exactly. And no matter what, you have to treat him just as you would any other athlete. It's just how organizations work.
Yeah,
Um,
of course. All I meant was like in terms of growing the game, what a
oh yeah,
horrible time for this to happen,
yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
he's your biggest star internationally, not even just here in the U.S. Internationally, I watched a YouTube video that was talking about how he brought in, I think it was in 2022, he brought in $700 million in revenue to the Angels if you add
Mhm.
everything up. Um,
Yeah.
and like that was his worth, and that's what he signed for this offseason. So obviously that's what he's worth. But I mean, to lose that guy right when your season's about to start would be a horrific hypothetical situation.
Mm.
And I had written this question down on our doc, but I almost don't even want to go there now because of what we had talked about earlier, where you can draw the conclusions of what happened, and that's the most likely scenario. But I mean, I just have to say it at some point. I mentioned Pete Rose a couple seconds ago. Could this be, if he's found guilty, is this the biggest betting scandal that they've seen, that the MLB has seen since Pete Rose? I mean, he's still not in the Hall of Fame 30 plus years later, 40 years later. I mean, I would say yes, because it's the biggest star that they've seen in decades. What do you think?
Yeah, and I apologize because I don't know a ton about Pete Rose, nor do I know a ton about MLB and its possible betting history of where that might be. But to a scale, right? Any league or athlete or anything like that having its biggest star removed from play for a betting issue, right? It's the type of thing where you do see that hurt a player's reputation, right? And
Absolutely.
I think again, I think it's different today because you look at betting whenever Pete Rose played, and I'm sorry, I don't know when that was.
It's the
To
70s.
in the '70s, right? And you look at Pete Rose in the '70s. I think you look at betting and you look at mental health as a whole, total scale, and it is totally different as an industry or as an understanding today than it was in the '70s. So over 50 years ago now,
Absolutely.
right?
Sorry, I just got to
So
plug my computer in real quick.
oh, you're good. You're chilling. No worries, Paul. So the
I don't
thought
want
for
to die
me
in the middle of
is
an
right.
episode.
Right. It's a ban, but I don't think it's a ban that ends Shohei's career if it does happen, right? It's a ban that goes and says, "Yeah, I betted. I have a problem. It's mental health related. Why on
Mhm.
earth would you not in this day and age would you say I'm going to bar somebody from being one of the
For
greatest
life.
athletes in my league of all time for life for a mental health disparity?" Right?
Yeah,
And I think
right.
that's something that we're in the same extent, right? Situation of Pete Rose, you could look at that with Pete Rose too and say, yes, he messed up, but gambling is a serious addiction. It
Yeah,
is set up to be addictive for you, and it's set up that you need, like just like alcohol, just like drugs, is something that you need, right?
yeah.
It
You're talking
hits
about
something in
forgiveness.
your brain, right?
You're talking about
And
a
again,
second chance.
going back to kind of where we started for what Zach is for a worldview, right? I strongly believe in forgiveness and being able to move on from that and say like, okay, let's say Shohei serves a similar ban to Ivan Tony. Ivan Tony bet on his own games, and did like
None of the bets
directly
were
bet
about
on
baseball, though.
record FC games that he played in, right? So let's
Right.
say Shohei was Los Angeles betting on Los Angeles for this season and was saying, we're going to win the World Series, 4.5 mil on it,
Well,
right?
that's the thing, is none of the bets were about baseball.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
actually a better situation. So say Shohei serves a 6-month ban and gets the mental health help that he per se needs in this hypothetical, right? I don't think it's something that you hold against him for the rest of his career. And again, the baseball season is longer than that 6 months, what is the power socially when he comes back into the game, right? How
Yeah.
many people are talking about Shohei Ohtani, the Los Angeles Dodgers, when that happens? And how many people are talking about the MLB when Shohei walks back on that field after a 6 month hiatus?
Yeah. That's
Right?
a
It
really
becomes very
interesting question,
very
and
quick.
that's so hypothetical. Um, and it is a low percent chance in my mind that that happens because of what we have laid out about what we know from what both parties have said. I do think that they will find that it was stolen money, and that it was Ippei's doing and Shohei didn't have involvement in it. But I can't guarantee that. I don't know what the MLB investigators are going to find. So I just think it's a very interesting developing story and one that we haven't seen really the likes of in a long time because there's so many interesting details to it.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Do you have anything else on that? I think that's kind of where we have to leave it. Is we'll just see where this takes us because we have so much information right now and no conclusion, but you can draw conclusions.
Exactly. We can sit here and think of hypothetical possibilities for hours. But one thing
Right.
I want to bring up before we let it go is, and I maybe the hiring process for a translator is different, but thinking about that Ipe falsified where he attended college, there wasn't any form of a background check to go and say, hey, he actually went to school here and he actually has this experience. And I understand for an
Right.
interpreter, it's probably different, but as an organization, if I'm hiring Ipe, I don't know how long Ipe had worked with
Well,
Shohei, if
that's
he worked
that.
at
He
both
worked with him
organizations,
before he came to the U.S.
right? And so, from an organizational standpoint, even then, why on earth am I not looking into this? And then if there's a reason where he went to college really doesn't matter because he has the qualifications to be an interpreter no matter what because he speaks both languages. Whereas
Right.
he doesn't really need the college application or education. Where even if he did quote unquote lie, right, doesn't really matter for the job he had other than maybe it's a prerequisite and
Yeah, that's an
beyond that
interesting point. I hadn't thought about that.
it's very possible that Ipe didn't go to college at all, was told he needed a college on his resume to go to college, said, maybe I'll go and do a random online course, right? Did one online course. The school updated its things. Maybe it had a information hack like us, and they lost track of it. And
Hmm.
eBay doesn't really have that, right? And even to the extent of the situation where he totally lied about it, but does that really matter to his employment in this case? And to that
That's a
extent, does that
really
matter to
interesting thing.
the thing, right?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And I don't know, and it is interesting. But as an organization, one, why on earth ain't there a background check? I don't know. That's confusing to me. I find it
Or
funny.
if there
I don't
was, how did they not catch it?
exactly right. Like for me, I did the USL Academy Cup this past not week but 2 weeks ago. Right, I had to do a background check for the USL Academy Cup just to get my name in the door for what I was doing. Right, and it's not a
Right.
massive thing. It's very simple. It goes through, make sure you have no criminal history, yada yada yada. But if you're hiring somebody to work with who is supposed to be your big showcase player, right? Why on earth are you not double checking that they have everything that they say they have? And why are you not double checking that they should be working with this person? Because this is somebody you should be seeking to protect. Um,
Yeah.
interesting take. A little
I don't.
jab at the Dodgers a little bit there, but I'm not trying to make
No,
enemies. I'm just
not even
saying.
necessarily. Not even necessarily the Dodgers' fault because Ipe was his interpreter when he was on the Angels as well, and then
Right.
was his interpreter before he even came to the U.S. When basically like when he started talking to teams over here. So like Ipe was his friend in Japan as well. So I don't know. That's a really interesting point. Is if if he did not attend UC Riverside, how did it get missed in the background check? Because I'm gonna assume there was one. It's the MLB. There's got to be background checks for MLB employees. And
I'd
I
pray. I'd
you
pray.
know what, I can speak to that because I even though I wasn't technically employed by the MLB, I worked for an MLB affiliate, and I had to go
Mm-hmm.
through a background check as an intern. So
Great.
like if they're background checking interns for the Portland Sea Dogs, they're gonna background check a translator for Shohei Ohtani. So
Right.
I'm sure he went through one. I wonder how that got missed if that's true.
Mm,
Um, I think that's another interesting aspect to this is there's so much hearsay, right? There's there's a lot of unproven facts at the moment that
right.
will have to be proven in the investigation. I wonder if that will be part of the investigation is doing that triple background check type of process.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I don't the place you went to college, I don't think is something that would generally show up in a background check. But something where you're
No,
diving into what the person applied with, what's their resume, what does this look like, and making sure that all of their prerequisites are in line and it lines up. But
right.
as an organization,
I
when you're
mean, it
hiring
could
some,
have been a situation where the Angels, when Shohei came over, Shohei was like, "Oh, this is my interpreter. Like, I'm bringing him with me, or like I'm not gonna be there." And
exactly.
they could have just said, "Okay, cool," right, and not done like an extensive check like
Mm,
that, like what we're talking about, like verifying everything on the resume type of check.
correct.
But I don't want to accuse the Angels of that, and
Oh no, absolutely not.
I highly doubt that that's the case based on just what I know about the sports hiring process. I highly
Yes,
doubt that that happened.
and I think it goes back to the point of well, to that extent, if Ipe is the guy Shohei's bringing with him, this little quote from NBC Los Angeles does not matter at all, and is just NBC Los Angeles trying to get in on this story and make a buck. Um, and that's a
Yeah,
little hot take
okay.
on that's a hot take on the media of saying like this is just you trying to get in on this story and saying here's a random fact that we found that is funny and interesting, but it actually doesn't matter to the quality of the story at all.
No, I mean, it
Which I
doesn't
think is a
matter to the quality of this story other than the question of whether Ipe is somebody who is trustworthy enough or not,
correct.
or somebody that would steal $4.5 million, essentially.
Right,
Um,
right.
and otherwise, it doesn't matter. Other than that, which like, I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying for sure. Um,
I like
so
these
we'll have to.
hypotheticals.
Yeah, I do too. I think those are the most fun segments on here are hypotheticals. I think those are what we have the most fun with because I
Agreed.
like talking about stuff that could happen in the future because it's more interesting than stuff that's already happened in the past.
Mm,
At least in my opinion. But and
yeah, absolutely.
this is a little bit of both. So I thought this was an interesting story to talk about.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
um, I just want to say before we are done talking about this, we'll have to see how this wraps up, and we'll give an update because
Oh,
I'm sure it'll be a big story when it concludes as well. Anything else you
absolutely.
had on this?
No, nothing else on this. Just wanting to say best wishes to all those in Shohei's camp, and um,
Yeah,
knowing that this is a difficult type situation to go through, and that we're praying for, or at least I am praying for all those involved that it comes to a good resolution and we can find a amicable solution that leads to success and growth for all those.
yeah, agreed.
Optimism.
And I'm I really hope he's innocent. That's just my personal take. Specifically because he's good for baseball as a figure. He's a really good figure for baseball. So
Mm,
baseball needs him to be innocent, you know. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, we'll see how
well
this
said.
develops. Is you said you had something else you wanted to talk about, right?
Yes, I did. So I'm working on this project, and this is a really crazy and weird transition because we're going from Shohei Ohtani, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and a betting gamble, all the way over to Spain to Athletic Club Bilbao, which is based in the Basque region of Spain, which has probably the most interesting recruitment strategy of all time. And I know because I'm throwing you
Is
right
this a
into the deep
professional
end.
club?
This is a professional club. They play in the Spanish first tier. They play in the Liga.
Okay.
But I'll give you the background of what this study I'm doing is, and then we'll kind of go into what Athletic Bilbao is and what the quote I have from them is. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm doing a study, my senior seminar final project, right? It is I'm diving into the club models of multiple football clubs from across the world, and I'm trying to understand what makes them unique, what's their cost, what's their benefits, what is their business model, and what are the lessons you can take from each one and scale it down or up to your organization, right? Whether it's business, whether it's
Wow.
a sporting club or anything like that. So I'm about 22 pages into this, and I'm on my third club, and I've just started Athletic Bilbao today. But
Wow.
key quote, the most unique thing of Athletic Bilbao is every single one of Athletic Club's players was either born in the Basque Country or brought up here. So
Whoa.
every single player who has ever played for their club is from that
Whoa.
specific region of
Wait,
Spain.
not even that's on the team right now.
Not
You
just
mean
on
ever?
the team right now, forever. They've existed since like the 1930s. Probably before the 1930s. Actually, I can find it in the logo. No, never mind. They've existed probably before the 1930s.
Are they
right?
any good?
Oh, yeah. They finish in the top half of the Liga all the time. They currently are battling for, I think, a top 4 place, if I'm remembering right. I might be wrong. But they're actually currently in the Copa del Rey final, which is the Spanish Cup. So, yeah, they're good.
Wow.
Right?
I don't know if you could tell from my jaw drop, but that was really shocking. There's no way they recruited from their own region only, their whole history, and are that good. That's wild.
So
wow.
Here's my question.
The things that college teaches you, huh?
A little bit. This is something that we don't see exist in American sports because
not at all.
History or regional allocation or pride isn't. Not saying it isn't there because people from Boston are really proud of being from Boston and are really proud of being part of Boston sports teams. But I don't remember the last time that I've seen an athlete from Boston go and play for example, the New England Patriots, right? And maybe.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get called out for being a fake fan for not remembering either.
Well, it doesn't happen often.
I'm sure I could think of one.
It doesn't happen often, does it?
Doesn't happen.
How many times has a player from the Basque region of Spain or from Bilbao played for Athletic Club Bilbao every season of their existence?
Wow.
Right? So
okay, well, not even just with Boston, just in American sports in general, that doesn't happen a lot.
You don't see a player from Dallas, a person from Dallas who grew up in Dallas, playing for the Dallas Cowboys and playing for football teams based in Dallas, go and play for the Dallas Cowboys. How many times have you seen that happen? I guarantee
that's really
you,
interesting.
I don't know for fact at all. It's less than the number of fingers on this hand. And I might chop off a
in
finger.
The NFL?
Appreciate my point. In the NFL, right?
I'm looking this up.
Look it up. Here's my question. Can we see, and does American sports change? Do we ever see a place that we get our sports to where this is the type of club culture and correlation and significance that we can have that American sports changes in this way? Does that ever happen? Because I know for me, and we all know I'm a bit obsessed with European sport. I love soccer. I love football. I love volleyball.
I've been watching more Premier League lately. You would be proud of me.
I would be proud. You've probably watched more games than me this season because I haven't been good about it. But
I've only watched like 4.
This type of regional pride correlated by direct investment from the club or organization because they're bringing up people and saying, we're going to train you to play for our club. And that's the major part of our organization's thought process.
No shot.
System. Will we ever see it?
What
do you think? No shot. Right?
Absolutely not. Listen, like, it's just not going to happen with the way recruiting is at the college level, which affects the way the pro level recruits, right? And specifically in the NFL, that's the case.
Right.
Because a lot of the NFL's players come from the colleges here. There is an international program now that is gaining more and more ground, but the main base of NFL players have gone to school in America. And that's the way it is in many of the other leagues too. Maybe honestly, the MLB is probably a bad example of that, because you see so many guys from the Dominican Republic and from Japan and from um, Puerto Rico and Mexico and other countries in South America. So there is more of like an international presence in the MLB, and it's not just college driven. But I believe it's kind of a trickle up effect. You know what I mean? You know how people, there's the phrase trickle down effect. It's a trickle up effect where the recruiting for college affects the way the pro drafts go, which
Mm.
affects who's in the league, right? So um, I think once that system changes, then maybe we could see that. But you
Yeah.
don't see a lot of times, even let's say at Division 1 schools, you don't see a lot of kids from their hometown playing for schools that are in their state, right? It doesn't happen a ton, specifically in the two biggest sports, football and basketball. In some of the other sports, it does. I know specifically, I've been watching a couple college hockey games lately because the um, Hockey East finals were at TD Garden, and UMass was in the semifinals. So I was watching them play BC, which was an unfortunate turn of events, but um, that's besides the point. My point is, I went to visit there a couple weeks ago, and I went to a hockey game, and when you see their scroller go through of their lineup on the video board, there were a few kids from Mass that were on their team, and I thought, oh, that's interesting because that's super uncommon, right? You don't see that a lot in college sports. Never mind professional sports. So what you're talking about, where you see a team where every single player in their entire existence is from their region, is never going to happen in America. Never. Like
And
not like 0% chance. Never. And until until the system changes.
yes, there you go. That's the caveat, right? If we were to change our sporting system, which America won't because it's about a business, right? It's just how it is, right?
That's what I was getting at.
Sure, Athletic Bilbao operates genuinely as a nonprofit, so it's different. Um, we will not see that type of this type of situation or this type of club model exists in the U.S. until a systematic change happens. But I will say
Which
the
isn't going to
closest
happen.
thing I will see to it, and we can tag the USL in this clip. The closest thing that I will see to it in my lifetime in U.S. sport, I believe, will be the USL, and will
You think
be
so?
a small USL2 club, and how their league is developing and growing. And I've worked in the USL, and we all know I'm a massive fan of it. And I believe in it. We are going to see people come from USL academies and directly go and play for these USL2, USL1, USL championship side. It's going to be a huge industry, right? You see it very similarly. We see that with the MLS, but the MLS has that draft system as well, so it's a bit different. But I think you can see a club like we have in
Does the
USL,
MLS have a lot of foreign players too?
and MLS also has foreign players coming in.
Yeah.
USL similarly can have foreign players, so it's not restricted in that way. But I don't think you see a MLS club who just paid 500 million to get into the league saying we want every single player who ever plays from our club to be from this specific region of the US, right? From our academy, right? That's not going to happen because the value system is different and because of the investment being different, right? So I
Completely
really think
different.
the USL is the closest thing that we might see to it. And I'm really excited for when I get to work in the USL and maybe I can influence this type of picture into some of our clubs, and maybe
That would be
something more
really
similar to
cool.
a Southampton model, where 50% of our top tier players are all from our academies, are all from, let's say, for me working with AC Connecticut, from the metropolitan region of Connecticut or from the state of Connecticut, right? And can we bring that up where they're playing for our academies and have that direct correlation? And how strong of an impact does that have on the rest of your business model and the investment of the communities into it? Because they know for a fact you are directly invested in them. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like from a loyalty perspective, I was just in
mm,
customer service this morning, so we were talking about loyalty. From a loyalty perspective, you gain a super loyal fan base because they know that everybody that they are cheering for is just like them, right?
yes.
And that creates a brand affinity that is honestly unmatchable. Um, but
Well,
with
and
the
you're
way
right.
the American system is set up, nobody's gonna do that. And it's unfortunate because that could create an opportunity for so many passionate fan bases that we don't necessarily get um, to the degree Europe has here in the US. We have really passionate fan bases. I'm part of, I believe, one of the most in Boston, but you go to every European soccer game ever, it's way louder than even most playoff games here in America. Um, and I can speak from personal experience. The only thing I've said it on this podcast before, the only thing I can compare to that would be I was at the 2021 ALCS game 3 and Kyle Schwarber hit a grand slam and Fenway went absolutely nuts. And that's the only thing I've ever been able in my life to compare to European soccer because you can hear through the TV when you watch it, you can hear how passionate they are. And like, yes, you can hear the fans in American sports, but they have the songs and the chants, and they are much more engaged with the product on the field than some American audiences are. And it's not every city, it's not the whole country, it's not even all of the fan bases who are viewed as not as passionate. It's not all of their fan bases. There are passionate fans everywhere. But it would be really, really interesting to see that happen for a professional team here. I just don't know if anybody would be willing to take the risk on it.
No, I don't think anyone would at this point in time. But if we
No.
do see it happen and a promotion relegation system is established in U.S. soccer, cough cough, want to see it. If that type of thing happens and we can see that rise, holy moly, how powerful it could be. The partnerships that come through it, the fan engagement that comes with it, as you were saying, the fan activation type of thing, right? It is huge, and this is why
It changes
I
your whole
encourage
business
that.
strategy.
Right, exactly. It changes everything. So if you're watching this right now and you're wanting to work in sports and you're interested in learning something really unique, something really cool, there's a really interesting Johan Cruyff Institute, a Cruyff Institute piece on Athletic Bilbao and their club model and how it works and what numbers support it. And just kind of like we just talked about, looking at things like that and what you can learn from each individual place and situation. Wow, the power that can be brought from it is huge.
Yeah.
Um,
Not to keep you
so yeah,
too long,
thanks
but
for diving in with me on that.
yeah, not to keep you too long, but how do they do financially? Do they do well with that
They do
model?
really well. They are, and
Hmm.
I can pull up the Johan Cruyff Institute piece real quick.
You don't have to pull
They
up facts unless you
they
want to, but I was just curious.
financial numbers, and I'm their attendant numbers and average club numbers. They're in the 50,000s. Average club members and attendance numbers per games. They have a 55,000 seater stadium. They have about
Yeah, the
50,000
attendance makes
average
sense.
per game. Their stadium's called the Cathedral, so it's good. Um, Fan related revenues are continue to rise. This was in 2015-16, so I don't have exact numbers, but financially they are not in the red. They do really well. And what the piece was actually talking about was they're actually doing so financially well that as a nonprofit, they've renovated their stadium, renovated their playing facilities, training facilities, and they actually do not know what to do with the money that they have because they
Hire
can't
us.
reclassify. Hire us is a good answer, Paul. I love it. I need to learn Spanish first, but I do have it.
Me too. I'm starting to take it.
I understand Spanish very well. I've played with a lot of Spanish soccer clubs. But to answer it simply is they do financially fantastic because they are a nonprofit.
Hmm.
Everything that they make is reinvested into the club and reinvested into their community. So finding places and regions to reinvest that is really hard, especially when you're
Wow.
doing so financially well. but especially when you add in their player recruitment strategy, the extra money they make often does not actually go into player purchases because it's focused on the academy and recruitment and bringing up players from the Basque region. So on average, their income is totally based on pretty much fan attendance, fan revenues, etc., and not on player sales like a lot of other clubs in Europe. So it is super super interesting when you look at their model and all the numbers. And we could do a whole dive into Athletic Club and how they operate, but I
That's
just
really
want to say
interesting.
they are super interesting, and it makes
Yeah,
me sad that probably
honestly,
will
I'm
never
glad
see
you
something
didn't put
like
that on the doc. I'm glad you didn't put that on the doc because me having a raw reaction to that was probably a lot more entertaining. um,
Well, it was something
I
that I thought of kind of like last minute,
yeah
random
yeah
as I go through. I'm like, what do I want my sports part of the week to be? And it's like, well, I did just read this today, and that was interesting. Let's talk about that.
yeah. By the way, we're scrapping the sports quote of the week because we're an hour in. So we're
Yeah, big time.
yeah, we're scrapping the sports quote of the week. But that was really interesting to talk about. Thank you for sharing that. I think hopefully those of you who are interested in finance will find that very
Oh,
interesting,
absolutely.
and those of you who are part of passionate fan bases, like I believe mine in Boston is, will I think enjoy that as well. So thanks for sharing that, man. I think we had a great conversation today. I
Agreed.
think
Agreed. Absolutely ripped it.
I think that's a perfect place to end. Um, but be on the lookout, guys, for the Day in the Life of Paul YouTube video that will be coming out probably tomorrow. If I have time to edit it, I have to study for my econ test tonight, so probably won't come out tonight. But but hopefully after I get through that, with passing grade, please, that that I am able to release that video. I think it's going to be pretty fun. I do think I realized there are too many videos of me just walking and talking. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit. But like the first half of my day was like walking to class, walking back from class, walking to class, walking back. So the first half was a little boring, but hopefully it comes out all right. So keep on the lookout for that, and go follow us on our socials as always. SBT_podcast on Instagram, SBT.pod23 on TikTok, and SBT_pod23 on Twitter. Thank you guys so much, and always we'll see you next week, maybe with a guest.